Welcome to Let's Face the Facts. I'm David Almeida, and I'm your host for this rewatch podcast for the classic sitcom The Facts of Life. I'm an actor in Orlando, Florida, and every week I bring you some of the greatest talent in the Central Florida arts community. Join us as we synopsize, analyze, criticize, and ultimately idolize the show, episode by episode. Hey guys, welcome back. It's another week, another Wednesday, another show. Thank you for downloading and pressing play. I'm recording this intro on my phone outdoors, so you may hear planes and cars and trains and automobiles and all kinds of crazy stuff here, but I really wanted to get the episode done and uploaded quickly. So before we get started, I do need to talk about this newest tragedy that has befallen the Facts of Life community, where the Roku channel now, as of December 1st, has switched to only carrying seasons 7, 8, and 9. So we're back to dailymotion.com. They're the edited down syndicated episodes. They've all got 3 minutes missing, but I mean, I'm glad we at least have that and the ability to stream them somewhere. But like I have said before, it seems the only way to truly have these on demand is to buy the entire series on DVD. And, well, I mean, Christmas is coming. Ask your loved ones. If they truly love you, they will get them for you. Anyhow, moving on to this week, my guest is DJ Salisbury. DJ is a good friend of mine. He is a director, choreographer, actor, singer, dancer, writer. He does it all, and he's done it all. He's worked on Broadway, he's done national tours, and we're lucky enough that he's recently decided to make Orlando his home base. So that is awesome. This week, DJ and I watched Season 6, Episode 4, My Boyfriend's Back, and the original air date was October 24th of 1984. I think we're ready to jump on in. Let's face the facts with DJ Salisbury. DJ Salisbury, welcome. It is so great to finally get you on the show.
Oh my gosh.
We've been friends for a while here, and from the first time we met up, I was like, oh, this guy, first of all, you're the proper age range that you know what we're talking about. We talk about the facts of life.
Frames of reference.
Yeah, because like me, you are also 29-ish.
Yes. Yeah, and we watched the reruns. We watched the reruns after school.
Yeah, in vitro in the 90s. That's how we watched the reruns, exactly. So yeah, you were airing some concerns a moment ago.
I have questions.
You have questions about the show, and you were saying that you were nervous about being on the show.
Podcasting is serious, yo.
I feel like it is so low pressure because you're just talking.
Listen. It's scary.
Yeah, but thankfully I don't have a very big listenership, so don't worry about that. It's not like it's going out to...
much less anxious then. I'm much
yeah.
less...
And I feel like removing the visual, I would be so self-conscious if people were also looking at me, if there was also like even though we're doing this, I'm pretty much exclusively doing this on Zoom. I could record this as video and post it on YouTube. Yeah, not going to happen.
Yeah, I did shave for our audio only.
Did you? So if you brush up against the microphone, we won't even know.
Just so smooth, like satin.
Very nice. I have a day's worth of stubble. I have not showered. I will be showering after we talk, but I had enough going on. And again, smell-o-vision hasn't been invented yet. Until that time, not going to worry about it.
Zoom will probably make it happen sooner than anybody else.
Mm-hmm. Yes. All right. Well, you said you have questions. Then let's start getting to it. First of all, the housekeeping of this is we just watched Season 6, Episode 4, My Boyfriend's Back. Mm-hmm. And the original air date was October 24th of 1984. It was written by Bob Meyer and Bob Young. They wrote last week's show. They are producers. They're in the writer's room. They are in this, and we see them and their scripts very frequently throughout the show. And directed by Old Faithful Asad Kelada, as he continues being their in-house director, though that is going to change as this season progresses.
Ah.
So yes. So did you actually, let's get real here. Okay. We're close in age. Did you watch the show, DJ, when you were growing up in the first run?
I did. I was not an ardent fan, so I can't say that I was like, I gotta be home to watch Facts of Life. And then I think I caught syndication episodes as well. But this episode would have been when I was a junior in college. Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
So
So
you
I was probably not watching. Interesting watching this episode, I'm like, oh, they all have breasts, and they're they're not the ones I remember because I watched for kids,
Yeah, Andrea Canny was saying that last week, that she was like, "What? Where did the school go? I thought they were little girls."
right?
And it's like, no, this show ran for 9 seasons, DJ.
Amazing. And yet they were still sleeping in the same bedroom. What?
Hmm.
Really?
And there were still virgins till almost the very, very end. Yeah,
Really?
crazy. Yeah.
How crazy.
And that comes into play here because
Yes.
this is kind of sort of a very special episode. But it's not really touted or billed as such, but it's as close as we get to talking about these girls having
Mhm.
sex until much, much later in the run.
And literally, the title of the show is The Facts of Life.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, that's interesting. It's been a while. It took a while to get here, but now they're actually talking about one of the facts of life.
Yes. When you said the title of the show, I thought you meant My Boyfriend's Back. And I was thinking, yeah, they could have called it My Boyfriend's Front. Ha ha!
Ah, ooh, yeah.
Yep.
I have questions. Can I ask my questions?
You have questions. I am here to give you answers.
Ooh, I did my homework, and then I'm like, I don't understand because again, I did not get to these seasons
Hmm.
in its first run. So when they open this particular episode and they're baking croissants for
Hmm.
customers, I went back 3 episodes. That's my dog. She barks at nothing.
Hi, Gemma.
Gemma, hi Gemma. What are you barking at? Nothing. Um, she senses you through Zoom, probably.
And so she loves me.
And yes, she loves you. Well, I went back to the season 6. There's no bakery. Where did this business come from? There's the episode about Joe making pizzas.
Yeah, that happened a couple weeks
There-
ago. This is last season and this season. This is the format. This is the Edna's Edibles seasons. That's what her business is called.
Got it. Well, it was interesting because in the start of the season, I really like clipped through the episodes looking for anything about the business, and there's nothing.
No.
And then there's a little bit about Joe baking pizzas. I'm like, well, it looks like a business kitchen that Joe is baking her pizzas in, but still nothing about Mrs. Garrett and her shop and nothing. And
No.
then they're baking croissants. And apparently, with these baking the croissants, which happens right at the top of the episode, she has given people coupons as they say,
Yeah.
for a free croissant, and nobody's buying anything, but they come in just for their free croissant.
Yeah.
I mean, and let me just tell you, when they run out of croissants, it's a clutch of Karens saying, "But I have a coupon."
Yeah.
I mean, it's like 1980s Karens step right up.
Oh my
"But I
God.
have a coupon.
Yeah. And it was
And
so weird when they threatened to give her a bad review on Yelp. I'm like, no one even knew what that meant back then. Wow. How ahead of its time.
Well, and then just to go down that path a little bit before we get to My Boyfriend's Back, the real theme of the show.
Yeah.
Then we come back around to the next morning when these people return on a Sunday morning to get their croissants. And Blair brings out the microwaved croissants.
Yeah. That are
And
flat and they don't
flat
properly
and pale.
rise.
Yeah, and I'm sure they're not at all good. And yet they still give them away. And I'm like thinking, Natalie says, give them to him anyway. And you go like, well, this is not going to be good for business when people eat these terrible croissants.
Yes.
But they do it anyway. They give them away anyway.
And then
I'm like,
one
oh.
woman, after Mrs. Garrett complains about the fact that everyone's coming in for the free one and they're not buying anything else. it's like, yeah, you need to say on your coupon explicitly free with purchase
There you go.
as supplies last or supplies are limited.
Yeah.
It's like,
And supplies are
wow.
limited. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like
I
you
didn't
really screwed that up. But at
screw it
the
up.
end, they sell one jar of, is it raspberry preserves? Where one woman says, "While I'm here, I'll get a jar of," sounds like my Mrs. Garrett voice. But
Well, yeah.
yeah,
Probably her sister. It was probably her sister.
but the thing is, like, at the you are 100% right that this
Weird.
flimsy B story of this episode, and this Facts of Life typically doesn't do A story, B story. This is not common. It's not
Uh-huh.
unheard of. It's just not how they typically work. And Mrs. Garrett's story of this kerfuffle with the coupons, where okay, so the resolution is that you sell one jar of preserves and people walk out with shitty croissants, and that's good.
Yeah.
It's
It's
yeah,
it's just so odd. It's very odd.
yeah.
And then okay, so I got to talk about too that my favorite moment. My favorite moment
Mm-hmm.
was the very first line. Natalie says to Blair, "What a great weekend for Joe to go away. She's at home with her mother who broke her arm." I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, the writers immediately let us know that actor is not in this episode at all.
Nope. Nope.
Like that is so funny. It was like the first line. Joe's not here. What a terrible time for her to be gone. Her mother
Yeah.
broke her arm. And then of course Natalie has no compassion, zero compassion.
No.
He says, "What's the big deal about a mother with a broken arm?" Like,
Jeez.
great,
She's
Natalie, great.
yeah, she's only a waitress. She could serve with her other hand. You expect her to say.
So amazing. And
Yeah.
in fact, I thought Natalie, again, I remember Natalie being the cute nerdy girl.
Mm-hmm.
That was her sort of place
Yeah.
in the
Boy
pack.
crazy. Mm-hmm.
Boy crazy and nerdy girl,
Mm-hmm.
and cute nerdy girl. And now she's like sarcastic and cutting.
Yeah.
Something's happened to Natalie. She got all sarcastic and cutting.
Oh, okay, I could see that a little bit in this episode. There are
Yeah.
times of all the girls, and we had this problem just last week with the Andrea episode that I did with her, is that Natalie's ethics are constantly being presented to us as highly questionable
Yeah.
as far as what she will do to get what she wants
Uh,
versus what is quote unquote right.
uh-huh.
And yeah, this is kind of feeding into that, the whole thing of, yeah, so Joe's not there.
And her mom broke her arm, and who cares?
Yeah, who cares? It's like we needed her help because Tootie's boyfriend's coming into town. It's crazy around here.
Crazy. Well, so now it's the boyfriend, right? The boyfriend.
Yeah, exactly. And so let me fill you in some additional information there. You know why Joe is not in this episode, DJ?
Oh, please tell me. I knew there had to be a good reason.
This is actually, in spite of being episode 4 in broadcast sequence, this was the first episode they filmed for season 6.
Oh.
Nancy McKeon was in contract talks, and they did
Oh.
not they had not quite rectified the issues yet. And so there are 2 episodes that don't have Nancy McKeon in them.
The first two, I guess.
The
First
f-
two films.
well, the first 2 they filmed, and then they got it squared away. But then they took those first 2 and put them later in the broadcast order so that you don't really notice. So we've already had 3 episodes that Joe has been a part of. But this was actually the first one coming
Uh-huh.
back from summer hiatus. And yeah, so
Maybe it
thankfully
makes
they
more
were,
sense that the whole looking when I look back in the season and didn't see anything about the shop, it makes
Mhm.
more sense that if this were the first episode coming after a previous season where you really got set up about the bakery, the good gourmet foods,
Mhm.
because it's just like this is weird. Where'd this come from?
You are so right. And as typical sitcoms go from the era, I'm constantly asking, who's minding the store? We have a whole plot going on with all the characters in the back of the house in the middle of the day. It's like, who is running the store? And if they're not running the store, who is in the kitchen creating all the baked goods that we know need to be ready to be in the store when it is open?
Right.
So it's one would hope for it to be a little bit better integrated into all of the stories, but you
Yeah.
are totally right that in their minds they're thinking, well, we got the bases covered. If anyone isn't sure about the premise of the show,
Right.
But wow. Yeah. Now, DJ, we've already talked a bit about some stuff, but I typically start the show by putting my guest on the spot and
Oh,
asking you if you would provide just a 1 to 2 sentence, very brief synopsis of the entire episode, just like the listing you might have seen in TV Guide at the time.
I think it's really focuses on Tootie deciding that she feels like she's being treated like a child by people that she wants to identify with, i.e., the people in college, i.e., her boyfriend, and therefore she starts questioning whether or not she has to, putting it frankly, put out to be considered an adult. That's
Hmm.
what it's about. So it really is the facts of life. It's an interesting thing that like
Yes.
she's really contemplating. We can go down that path a little later about what she decides to do. It's kind of interesting
Yeah.
to me.
But you're right that it's dealing with Tootie, and Tootie has dealt with this before, as far as being the baby of the group, as being the youngest. Now, in the earlier seasons, there was a wider gap. The girls' ages were indeterminate, and Kim Fields is at the moment 1 year younger than the age she is playing. Tootie is 16, Kim Fields is 15. That had been previously a 2 year gap. They de-aged her somewhere in season 4. Both Tootie and Natalie were de-aged a year. But in the early seasons, the first season, Kim Fields was 10, playing 12.
What?
That's a huge,
Why?
huge gap. Having
Why?
having a 10-year-old play a 12-year-old. And
Yeah.
she did not look 12. She did not look mature. She looked like a child.
Yeah,
And you
yeah.
remember the roller skates? It's because she was so short. They needed the roller skates to add height to her.
Yeah, yeah.
So
She was still
it's
short. She's still.
she
You're
still
looking at
is, yeah.
small. They're small people.
Yeah. Not as short as Mrs. Garrett. Mrs. Garrett is still the shortest of the bunch.
Amazing.
And
Amazing.
yeah, so this falls right into that. So we have often dealt with this thing of them treating Tootie as the baby, as not mature. They've done it in a not very subtle way in some episodes, but I realized in my microscopic dissections, I often kind of forget to give the forest as opposed to the trees.
Yeah.
And the forest, I do want to say, is we've already been somewhat critical of this B story, but I like this episode. I like the A story, and I like what it's doing. And I don't say this often. I do think the execution of it was pretty good
Uh-huh. Yeah. No.
for a Facts of Life episode.
Qualified. Qualified.
Yeah.
No, I would say it's pretty straightforward. You go on the journey easily. There's nothing that's confusing about the A story with Tootie and the boyfriend.
Yeah.
Um,
It's yeah. So the episode does start in the store with the pandemonium over the croissants and these coupons. And you want to know what would have been a nice little integrating moment here when Natalie is saying to Mrs. Garrett, well, you should have put that on the coupon that they only get one or that they have to buy something. Would have
Cutting
been
and
nice.
sarcastic.
Yeah, again, being catty and sarcastic and no sympathy, no empathy,
No.
Natalie.
No.
She could have said, well, Joe usually looks these things over. That Joe's absence and Joe being the sort of de
Oh
facto
yeah.
store manager, Joe would have caught that. That would not have happened without.
Uh-huh.
Joe would have said, no, you got to say free with purchase and you got to say supplies are limited.
Right.
One per household.
Unlimited.
Yeah, and lady, if you think you're getting a croissant for your fucking baby, I got a knuckle sandwich that you can have too.
Joe cursed all the time, and they just bleeped it out. They just edited it out.
Totally. So, yes, we learn Joe is out of town. The shop is great. I mean, it is pandemonium. I meant to count how many people. There was like a dozen people there, weren't there?
Like that. There were at least 8.
Yeah, a
Maybe up to 12. There were
lot.
at least 8. And all of them with a coupon. All of them.
Yeah, so it's crazy. But then we quickly learn that it's chaos and pandemonium also because Tootie can't fully devote her time to it because she's preparing for the return of her boyfriend, Jeff.
Yes.
And basically, as things die down, the store closes, the people leave because there are no more croissants
There are no
to give
more.
them. So then Jeff shows up. Tootie's upstairs getting ready, but we get to see him and meet everybody.
And his biceps, which they talk about a lot.
Hmm. And then they show us later, we get to see him shirtless.
I
Thank you
know.
very much. But the actor is Todd Hallowell, sometimes billed as Todd Hollowell. And he shares a name with a director, a Hollywood director. And the director, I think, is still fairly active. Todd Hollowell, this actor, kind of falls off the radar after a while. And there's no real evidence of what he's been up to lately.
Yeah, never saw him before.
Yeah, I love him. I think he is the perfect addition to the show. I think his demeanor is right. They greet him with so much love. He is so much a part of the family because this is his third appearance in this character. This is the third time he will make a total of 8 appearances on the show as Jeff. And in addition to those 8 appearances as Jeff, way back in season 3, he was on the show as a different character, as a boy that was interested in Tootie.
Oh no!
A character named Zach.
So that's what my boyfriend's back means.
I know.
My other boyfriend is back. The evil twin or whatever.
Opportunity missed. They could have done a multiple personality.
Totally.
I'm sorry, what's it called? DID, dissociative identity disorder, I think is the 21st correct term for what we used to call Sybil syndrome. They could have done that. But yeah, when I saw it, talk about my brain exploding, I was like, what? That's Jeff. That's him, right? And they call him Zach. And I'm like, what the fuck is happening? And of course I'm thinking, am I such a goddamn racist that I can't tell the difference between this actor and this other actor? And I'm like, they're the same. I'm not a racist.
It's the same person.
Oh, thank God I'm a good white person.
An imperfect ally.
Oh, what a beautiful word.
It's a good term.
That's a good word. So, future spoilers, by the way, as the show progresses. We're in season 6. The show goes on for 9 seasons. In this episode, spoiler, they're going to break up. They're not going to be together by the end of this episode. We pretty much laid that out. In 2.5 years, he is going to be back at the end of season 8, and they're going to get back together.
What?
At the beginning of season 9, he will propose.
What?
By the end of season 9, Joe gets married, and both Tootie and I think technically Natalie, both of them are engaged to their boyfriends.
Wow.
Yeah, and so
the facts of life.
The facts of life.
No babies ever, right? Any babies ever?
There is more. In the reunion movie in 2001, we do see that Tootie has a daughter named Tisha. She looks like she's about 10 years old or whatever, but there's no mention of Tootie's husband. And then later in the movie, when they're having a heart-to-heart, Tisha's misbehaving, Tootie's doing that thing, and Tootie is called Dorothy now, her adult name. So Dorothy is doing the motherly thing of, why don't you talk to me? We never connect, and what's going on with you? And Tisha, in beautiful TV movie style fashion, says, Mom, you're never home. And Dorothy says, I work crazy hours so that you can live comfortably and you can go to a good school. And then Tisha says, and so you can forget that Daddy died?
What?
And then Dorothy is like, yeah, so I can forget how much I miss him. Now, I thought she named him by name. She does not name the father by name, but she goes on to say, sweetie, I've loved your daddy since I was 16. He was the love of my life.
Jeff died.
She does take a picture out for Tisha to see of her and her dad, and it's an African-American gentleman holding a baby. It's not Todd Hallowell. It's a different actor person. I wonder if it's not the actual dad of the young actress, that it was, can we use a picture with my daddy in it kind of a thing?
It's got to be Jeff.
It's got to be Jeff. There is no question. If she's loved him since he was 16. We want to know
what happened to him. Yeah. What happened, Jeff?
And if you want one more layer of what the fuck is happening, DJ, when we first met Jeff, when they first connected and started dating, that was the illiteracy episode. He was being wooed by colleges on football scholarships left and right, star player, quarterback, but he couldn't read or write.
Oh my goodness.
And his classmates, and they even allude to even some of his teachers were helping him, I'm making air quotes here,
Uh-huh.
by giving him the answers to the tests.
Oh,
Somehow he was able to memorize them. I guess they were reading them to him. Somehow, as an illiterate, he was able to fill in the bubbles on the test. It's a very nebulous,
yeah,
I'm illiterate episode. Would have been nice if it had been more about dyslexia, like
yeah.
I have trouble reading
Right,
and
right,
writing.
right.
But
Specific
they
to an issue that we now know how to take care of, and their
yeah, they
solution. Yeah,
didn't have the vocabulary back then, certainly. So we cut them a little bit of slack. But the deal is we never hear of that again. We never hear whether
sure.
or not there was ever any issue. And now we learn that he's going to Penn State on a football scholarship.
Uh-huh.
So it's just like, great, guess he learned how to read. Woohoo!
And there's one mention of like the coaches sort of talking to me about essentially about my grades, not specifically grades, but like he has to do well academically as well.
Yeah. And that's typical for an
Yeah.
athletic scholarship. That's,
Although we could go down that path. Why now? Really? Why?
yeah,
They're there because they play sports well. They're money makers for the schools. I'm sorry, this is my soapbox. It's
yeah.
like
Well, they're
their
getting
job
paid
is there
now.
to make the money.
Didn't
They're
didn't
getting paid now. It's just
Yeah,
crazy.
that's a new thing where they're getting
It's crazy.
paid now. So it's like, what?
Well,
Aren't
that
isn't
makes
a
sense because they're
scholarship?
making the school money.
Yeah.
So my I always say like because of course I got a performing arts degree because that's really valuable. And
Hmm.
the question is like, you and I loved school. I loved learning various things. But in the end, if you're there to play football well, why do they even have to go to class in any other subject? You know what I mean? Especially now if they're being paid, they're
Yeah.
now professional football players. Just let them be that. The school can still make all the money that they're going to make because
Yeah.
that's all they're there for. So that this pretense that it's about they have to keep up their grades too. It's just a pretense.
Yeah.
It's all pretend. Sorry,
I
off my box.
Off your soapbox. I will only partially agree with you there because I feel like I don't think they should be paid. It's like their scholarship is their
No, I
pay.
don't either. I really don't.
To
I
me, the
don't.
scholarship is their pay. And it's like, and by the way, we're paying you to have a profession and the ability to earn a living doing something after you have had your head slammed into the ground 45 times in a row over 10 years, and you are not able to play football after you're
That's what Jeff
30.
died of. That's what Jeff died of. CTE.
Oh
That's
my
what he
God.
died of.
Oh my
And
God.
I'm
He went on to be a
certain.
professional. Holy shit. That's it. That's the folklore. We have decided.
That's
You're
it.
totally right.
Has to be.
Yeah. So no sooner does Jeff come in and we meet his two friends. They're the ones that he is staying with. It's his friend, Rich Thompson, also from Penn State. And Rich Thompson is dating this girl named Ellen Carter, who is a student at Langley, where Blair and Joe go. We even learn that she and Blair are in a class together.
Yes.
Rich is played by actor John Terlesky. He has 44 acting credits, tons of little guest one-offs in very high-profile network shows in the 80s and 90s. But since 98, he has moved into producing, writing, and tons of directing.
Well, look at that then.
He has directing credits, including things like Criminal Minds, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Castle, How to Get Away with Murder.
That's good
Like,
stuff.
that's high-profile shit. So
Go,
this
Rich.
actor with the gigantic, amazing jawline, I will
Yeah.
add.
Lantern jaw.
Wow, not since you have I seen a jawline
Oh,
like that, DJ.
yeah. Oh, you.
Jeez, get the vapors.
But well, look at that for that moment. It made me uncomfortable. That
Yeah,
they're in a stranger's home. They're in their friend's home, not even their
yes.
friend's home,
And they
and
start sucking face.
I'm like, this is so uncomfortable. I'm so uncomfortable. Who does that? Nobody.
Yeah.
That's like PDA extreme.
Yeah, and it's like you couldn't have done this out in the car. You couldn't have given him a handy in the car before you came in, and
Well, and then
really?
I may be jumping the gun here, but then we learn that they actually live together. So
Not,
that they
not that
actually
they not
are
that they
shacking
live
up.
together,
Well, they're
but
shacking up.
yeah. Well, the device of this, the mechanical plot purpose of this is that it's happening in front of Blair, but
Uh-huh.
not in front of Tootie. So later, when Tootie is having her doubts about her compatibility with Jeff, she does happen to mention in passing that Jeff is staying with
Rich.
yeah, Jeff is staying with Rich in somebody's dorm room next to where Ellen stays. And basically Blair, based on the behavior she saw, I'm paraphrasing here, but basically Blair's like, the guys are not sharing a room, too.
Right.
It's like Jeff is alone and the two others are fucking.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. They are so fucking.
Although it was, and maybe you're right that she, in witnessing the PDA, these necking in a stranger's house, she assumed that would be true. It felt a little weird when Blair said, "Oh, they're in the same, they're sleeping together, they're shacking up." I'm like, where did you get that information, Blair? Who told you that?
It is a leap. It is a leap, but at the same time, you're like, if they are so comfortable sucking face in the middle of a room where other people are like, it's not like they're standing in a corner. It's like they're in the middle of a conversation. So it's like, okay, if they can't keep their tongues off of each other in this setting, do we really think they're going to be in neighboring rooms in an overnight stay when they, like Tootie and Jeff, have not seen each other for 3 months? So I think that's what the purpose of that was. But
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah. But there's further discomfort when Tootie does come down. She and Jeff are all happy to see each other. But as they're making plans and the sort of how do you do's and nice to meet yous with the others, they're a little cool to Tootie. And you can tell it's one of those like, oh, wow, she's a kid, isn't she? She's young. There is a little bit of an awkward them talking about choosing a major and Tootie being like, what's the big deal with picking a major in college? Why does everyone freak out over it? And Ellen does say, well, if you don't pick a major, you can't graduate. And Tootie was like, well, I know that, but, and part of me is like, yeah, you know that. And you know why? Because you live with 2 college students who are your best friends. That's, it was a little bit of a thing, but.
Tootie, she's a senior at this point?
Tootie is a junior.
So she's
16 years old. She is a junior. She will be graduating the end of next season.
And Jeff is a freshman in college.
In college,
2 years apart. So I presume that Rich and Ellen are also freshmen.
They would have to be, yeah.
They would have to be. And so you just go, what,
Yeah, 2 years. 2 years isn't a big difference, but there is a quantum leap you make when you're not in high school and you're at college.
Yeah.
And you're living alone. You
get a little snobby about it. It's true. It's hazing.
Just a little bit.
Hazing.
Yeah. But when they come back from their date that night.
You have to look down on the youngers. You have to look down on the younger people.
Yeah, that's such a, again, that's so high school.
Yeah.
Hello. But when Tootie and Jeff come back from the date, though, you can tell Tootie says she feels like she didn't connect with them. She thinks they didn't like her. And he was like, no, it's fine. So they make plans for brunch the next morning at a place called, we've never heard of this before, a place called Flappy Jack's.
Yeah.
An interesting fact, I used to dance under that name when I was in college.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I won't tell you where I got the nickname Flappy.
I don't want to know.
I will not tell you which bathhouse gave me that award, but we're just going to move on, okay? That's okay. Private, and I am offended that you're bringing this up. So moving on.
Moving on.
I'm not being defensive. Shut up. So they make their plans. And Tootie is still deep in thought when even though she's seeing him and she's happy she's going to see him alone the next morning, she goes up to the bedroom and she's still deep in thought. And we do get this shtick of they know they have to be up early the next morning to make the croissants, and Natalie won't settle in. Blair's like, turn off the light. And then Tootie comes in and the light comes on. So it's one of those, Blair's just never going to get a good night's sleep.
Has to pull the comforter over her face.
Yeah. But it basically ends with Tootie being told what Blair says. She's like, I think it's safe to assume they're fucking. Yeah. And that's why this is as close as we get to girl talk, really, on the show about the facts of life. Mm-hmm. So, and I have to point out, I say Natalie is the boy crazy one. Oftentimes that does spill over a little bit into the horny one.
Yeah, sometimes.
So when she's like, no, they're sleeping together. And Natalie's like, really?
Yeah.
And she's like, yes, good night. Let's go to sleep now. And then before she turns the light out, Natalie's like, so Rich is staying with Ellen? How do
Yeah.
you do that? Don't they have roommates? How do they make people not, Natalie was like, what is this about? In fact, it was cut from the
She's
syndicated
spinning the
version.
fantasy already, spinning her fantasies already.
Yeah, exactly. And interestingly, remember, Natalie will be the first one to lose her virginity in season 9. That's coming up in
Wow.
in just 3 short years, girl. You're gonna get the D.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Natalie was first. That's shocking.
Mm-hmm.
Or we just didn't know. Or Blair just didn't tell. Or Joe just didn't tell.
No, Lisa Welchell's a Christian, so Blair,
Oh,
no,
Joe.
there's
I
no
mean,
even
Joe,
subtle.
come on.
Yeah.
Joe is Rizzo, after all.
Yeah.
I mean, she is Rizzo.
If not Cha-Cha.
If not,
I'm the best dancer at St.
Saint
Bernadette's
Bernadette. Yo!
with the worst reputation. Well, it's on this note of Tootie going to bed, turning off the light, and the perfectly placed evening blue gelled spotlight on
Mhm.
Tootie in bed
Mhm.
that we fade to commercial while she is still
Contemplation.
deep in thought as far as what's wrong with my relationship. So this brings us to the commercial, DJ. And during the commercial break, I always like to take a moment to get to know my guest a little better and introduce you to the world at large of my tens of listeners.
Hi, world at large.
So you have such an impressive resume of
Hey,
super.
Careful.
No.
An impressive laptop.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
An impressive dog. Yes.
You know, when you whipped out your resume and showed me how long it was, DJ, I have to say I was impressed. But you have so many professional credits as both a performer, as a choreographer, director. I would like us to please leave us, turn back the clock.
Turn back
DJ.
time.
Where were you born?
Oh, the actual city that I was born in was Huntington, West Virginia, but that's because the hospital, that was the nearest large hospital to my hometown, which is Louisa, Kentucky.
Louisa.
Yeah, so you could say I was born in Louisa, but I was born across the border in West Virginia. But I was raised all of my childhood until I went away to college in
Wow.
Louisa, Kentucky.
Kentucky boy, Southern boy. Wow. So how did you start getting into performing?
Well, to tell the truth of the story, there were no opportunities in my hometown for drama. I mean, my town was 2,000 people. The population sign when you drive into town says Louisa, Kentucky, population 2,000. It still says that.
Jeez.
I know. Now,
They're killing them as fast as you're making them.
or people don't stick around, or who knows what. But yeah, it's amazing. Junior in high school, my friend, we called him Lurch. That's what we called him,
Okay.
because he was 6'5". He probably got taller. He was 6'5" when he was fairly young, in his young teens. So I'm sure he probably got a little bit taller. But he was 6'5" at that point. So when you're 6'5" in a small rural community, high school, what happens to you? You are pressured to be a basketball player.
Mhm.
Period. End.
Yeah.
Somehow I didn't get that pressure. I think they knew. I'm 6'3", but they did not pressure me.
Nice.
They knew. But Lurch, he said, I'm awkward, and my basketball coach says I should take ballet to just get to know my body better, to become more graceful. He didn't, whatever he said. It was essentially the idea, like, to be a little more aware of his physicality, and not be quite so clumsy as a tall growing boy can be. But I'm afraid to go by myself, so DJ, will you go to ballet class with me one day a week? So we would drive about 30 miles, which in that time seemed far. Nowadays, it doesn't seem very far, but it seemed like a far hike to another town, Ashland, Kentucky, to take ballet with Miss June Kahn at Miss June Kahn's School of Dance. And June Kahn, we loved June Kahn. She had the very dramatic Yvonne DiCarlo eye makeup.
Oh, nice.
Adams is fantastic. She was always on point in her black leotard and pink tights. Just and
Love.
the bun, Miss June Kahn. So we went. I don't think he stayed more than a few weeks. Like, again, we would drive one day a week. It was Wednesdays, I remember.
Mhm.
He stayed a couple of weeks and he dropped out. But I kept going. And
Ah.
because, as you can imagine, also rural school of dance places, uh, few boys.
Hmm.
So gave me a scholarship. I didn't have to pay because they wanted boys.
Hmm.
And so there was myself and one other young, he was, I think, a college age African American fella, and we were it. So when they did Nutcracker, we were all the boys
Hmm.
because we were it. But again, it was only 1 day a week, so it wasn't what I would call real training. Although no discredit to Miss June Kahn, she was talented as a teacher, but
Hmm.
it was a hobby.
Yeah. So you went to college.
Went to college to become a veterinarian with the goal of being a primatologist because lo and behold, in rural eastern Kentucky, I had monkeys as pets. And I was
Okay.
fascinated. I know, right? You're learning more about me, David. You're learning more.
That's wow. That's new
Yeah.
information. Wow.
Yeah, we had three squirrel monkeys, not all at the same time. One capuchin and one stump-tailed macaque. She was big. Samantha. She was something. She had such a big personality, and we actually had to inevitably. She became a little too much for us to handle because they're so smart. They're so
Oh
smart.
yeah.
So we found another gentleman who took her from us. But I loved Samantha. She was just a little too much for my family. Well, anyway, um, I knew from a young childhood I was going to be an animal doctor, or that's what I had always said. Um, and in college, studying veterinary medicine at Washington University in St. Louis, which is
Mhm.
known for its pre-med program and its pre-law and art and modern dance. I
Sure.
took modern dance and I took acting. And my dance teachers and my acting teachers, these are my electives because I was in a very intense pre med program. My acting teacher in specific, after that first year, it was the first year of Reaganomics, and all of the grant money went away.
Mhm.
My family wasn't wealthy, and this was a private university. So, with all that stuff drying up, there was just no way I could stay. But my acting teacher said, we think this may be something for you to look into. And I said, well, I don't think I can afford to stay here if I switch majors. Um, and they went to the dean and did a lot of stuff on my behalf, and there was just no money. So, but it was that first year of taking acting class and modern dance that had me go like, oh, I think this is where I should really focus my time. Because and also organic chemistry is hard.
Fuck yes.
It is hard. It's like, oh, at a
Yeah.
competitive school, organic chemistry is like brutal. Ugh. But so that's when it switched. So that was my odd enough. The path was from pre veterinary medicine study to modern dance and acting. And I got a scholarship to a ballet school in New York City for the summer. I apprenticed with a puppetry company in St. Louis for the summer right before the ballet scholarship because I wasn't about to go back to Kentucky.
No, no, no.
I was like, no. Once
You're
you
like,
just totally, I got out of there. Let me find other things. I found my tribe. Found my tribe.
oh yeah, God, yes.
And then I went to SUNY Purchase for a semester, and the one all school production was Pippin,
Ah.
and I was the leading player. It really was that production of Pippin was what had me go, oh, this is what I do. Musical
Oh.
theater. Breezing forward, came right out of school. I got my performing arts degree back in Kentucky because by then I was poor, and it was still economics.
Hmm.
And so I went to an in-state school that had a BFA in performing arts. Did that. Even there, I did write a musical for credit, and they chose to do it as a full production in my senior year, which was awesome. I also directed that, my own work.
Nice.
And I discovered, direction and choreography and writing. This is what I want to do. So I did get a job, audition in Nashville, got cast as a world dancer at Epcot Center. So my first job out of school was here in Orlando.
Oh, that was
Yeah,
right out of school. Okay.
that was my first. I auditioned in Nashville, but interestingly enough, my family had just moved to Orlando while I was still in school.
Huh.
Because my nephew had cerebral palsy, and there were programs here for infants, therapeutic programs for infants with cerebral palsy. So they moved here from Kentucky. So it kind of moved to my new hometown, oddly enough.
Wow.
by the fluke of auditioning in Nashville for Disney World. So came down, did my 13-month contract, stayed on as a casual temporary because I knew I didn't want to continue doing that particular show, The World Dancers. Nothing wrong with it. I loved The World Dancers, but I just was like, what else? What else? I want to learn more. I want to grow, expand. So I did a breakfast show at the Pioneer Hall called the Melvin the Moose Breakfast Show. Yes, it is a real thing. Two actors, a male and female, Cindy Lou and Alabama, and Chip and Dale and Melvin the Moose, the big moose head on the wall. That was the show, breakfast show.
Uh-huh.
You
And
were done
Pioneer Hall is
at Pioneer Hall where they do Hoop-de-Doo review.
correct. Yeah.
But they wanted to see if they could multi-purpose the space and do a breakfast show. And it didn't last very long. I don't know why. Melvin the Moose Breakfast Show, you'd think it would be a hit. It did not last very long. Did that. So I was here in Orlando for a couple years, got my equity card, oddly enough. I flew up to Pittsburgh to audition while I was a world dancer at Epcot. And if you get cast at Pittsburgh Civic Light Opera, you become equity automatically
Okay.
because of their contract. And this is all, of course, before Disney was equity, many, many years before they became equity.
Yeah.
But the good news in a certain way was I moved to New York City as an equity member. So I had that little leg up moving to New York City, which was
Yeah.
beneficial.
And so this is what now? The late 80s is where
Late
we
80s, yep. I moved up in the spring of 88.
Mhm.
I did a show pretty much right away at Equity Library Theater, which used to be what Encores is now, where they would do old musicals
Okay.
that didn't get productions. They would do small showcase productions. So I did No No Nanette,
Mhm.
uh, and met and became friends with Dick Scanlon, who is the book writer for and lyricist for 30 Modern Millie. Great guy, wonderful
Mhm.
talent. Met a lot of people I still know from there. Then I did a show at Paper Mill Playhouse with Susan Stroman choreographing, where I believe it was where she learned all of the prop gimmicks that she would end up using in Crazy for You, because it was also a Western show.
And for those who are not versed, Susan Stroman would go on to do the producers. That would be her big
Yeah,
thing. Many other things in addition to
producers.
that.
Yeah, yeah, she's a fabulous choreographer. I think one of our greats.
Mhm.
And then I did the original production of Jekyll and Hyde in Houston with Jerry Mitchell choreographing.
Mhm.
Uh,
Who would go
and
on to do Hairspray?
Hairspray and Kinky Boots and On Your Feet, so many things.
Mhm.
And then I auditioned for the Will Rogers Follies. And Tommy Tune, I'd already learned he was, for me, the epitome of great director choreographer. Visionary, creative, inventive. I just love his work.
Mhm.
So I did not make the cut at the end. There were maybe 15 out of the hundreds that showed up that they kept to the very end. And I knew, I was like, well, DJ, I could go home with my tail between my legs, or I could step out of my comfort zone, because what I really want to do is witness Tommy Tune at work as in the development of a new musical. So
Mhm.
I took my picture and resume, a new picture and resume, to the dance captain who was there teaching the audition combo. I handed her my picture and resume, and I said very clear, I said, I understand that I've been cut, but if there's any opportunity for me to watch the process, it would be a real gift to me, or something like that.
Mhm.
And she looked a little puzzled, like, oh, okay, oh, all right. Well, get this. Here's the magic part of the story. The next day, that was a Monday, and Tommy loved working in theaters. And the Niederlander Theater, where Rent was born, prior to Rent, it had been in a disuse for a number of years because of the 80s, as you might know. 42nd Street was nowhere to go. It was it was no man's land. You did not want to be there. There was there were porn shops everywhere and
Mhm.
dirty movie theaters and so on, and a lot of drug addicts on
Mhm.
42nd Street. So this is well before the big cleanup that if anybody goes now, they go, what are you talking about? It's gorgeous.
Yeah,
No,
it's
it
like a
was,
big outdoor mall for all the
yeah,
tourists.
exactly.
Yeah.
You did not go to you would walk on 43rd Street. And 41st, where the Niederlander Theater is, because it was below 42nd Street, even though it was a Broadway theater for a number of years, nobody wanted to do a show there
Hmm.
because it was below 42nd Street. It's only 41st, but they thought nobody will go there because it's too dangerous. Well, Tommy used that theater as a rehearsal hall because
Ah.
he loved being in a theater to rehearsal show so that you get immediately, you don't have to think about how it's going to translate when you get into the proscenium house from a studio. You're in a proscenium house. You're
Hmm.
designing it on a stage, which is awesome. So that's where he had done Grand Hotel's national tour rehearsal.
Hmm.
A friend of mine, Abe, said we can invite people to the Gypsy Run, which is what they called, the Gypsy Run would be where you invite your friends before a tour would go on the road. They would see the last rehearsal in a studio, usually, in this
Hmm.
case, a theater, before the tour went on the road. So all their friends would come in and cheer them on. So I was invited to the Gypsy Run the next day after the
Ah.
Will Rogers audition, which had been on that stage, back to that stage, the Nederlander stage and theater, to watch Grand Hotel's run through. So Grand Hotel is a one act. There's no intermission. I'm sitting there in the back of the house watching Grand Hotel, which I love.
Hmm. Great
Genius.
show.
I mean, Tommy Tune's
Great show.
it's got Tommy Tune all over it
Hmm.
in terms of his visionary take. Well, anyway, I'm sitting there watching. I get a tap on the shoulder, and I'm passed a note during the show because there's no act break, and it says, "If you're still interested in the Will Rogers Follies being assisting, call this number tonight." I'm like, okay. And I didn't know who it was that handed me the note. I now know. So I called, and this very gruff voice said, I don't know anything. You have to call me at 7 a.m. in the morning. I'm like, okay.
Hmm.
So now we're talking Wednesday. That was Tuesday. Now, Wednesday, 7 a.m. in the morning, I call. I'm going to call.
Fuck yeah.
And, and it was Phil Osterman, who is the man that brought Tommy Tune from Texas to New York City,
Wow.
who they were uh, like brothers in a certain sense. But Phil was Tommy's associate director on the Will Rogers Follies, and he was his associate director on many things. I don't know if he was in Grand Hotel. It's not in my mind right now, but they were super close. It was Phil that had handed me the note, and it was Phil who said in his gruff manner, "I don't know anything. Call me in the morning." 7 a.m. the next day, I call, and he said, "Can you be in rehearsal at 11 today?"
On
Uh,
Wednesday.
yeah. And I said, yes. And so then for another week and a half, almost 2 weeks, I was with Jeff Calhoun, dance captain Patty DeBeck, another dance assistant, Stephen Minning, who is a dear friend, and Cy Coleman sitting at the piano. As we're making up the choreography, I was on the team.
Man.
I know. It was a
And Comden
big
and Green were the
Comedy
lyricists.
Green
They were
and
there in
Peter
the room too,
Stone.
right?
And, yeah, they were the lyricists, and Peter Stone was the book writer. And Willa Kim did the costumes, and Tony Walton did the set, and Peggy Eisenhower, and oh my gosh, my mind just went blank. And partner, shoot, lighting. It was like the A team
Hmm.
of that moment in time. The A team.
Correct. Yeah.
So good, so good. But yeah, that was the magic of the story of like I just stepped out of my comfort zone and boom, I'm in rehearsal.
Yeah.
Uh, and Jeff Calhoun is a friend. We still talk. I'm going to be assisting him on a new off-Broadway musical when we get back to doing those things.
Hmm.
But that's kind of how it began, just getting in there and learning. I call it my Tommy Tune University days. I was in Tommy
Yeah.
Tune University. I learned from him and from Jeff and from everyone how you put together a musical.
Hmm.
The best training ever.
Yeah. That you're not going to get if you had enlisted in an MFA and
Correct.
continued at a college. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I was cast as the swing in the national tour, which I did for 2 years. I was dance captain and swing for 2 years.
Wow.
So that was the
Huh.
beginning of my sort of like national tour life. I did a tour of My Fair Lady as well that went to Japan. I did. Jeff Calhoun was the director of Grease, the first revival, the neon version,
The Rosie
and
O'Donnell.
yes. And so I was dance captain on that tour. I was
Hmm.
after Will Rogers Follies closed. Jeff said, "Okay, Grease is going out. Will you dance captain and swing Grease?" I said, "Sure." So I did that for a year. Came back, started doing more choreography. I would, whenever I could, I would jump into some choreographic opportunities. Started working at Sacramento Music Circus and doing some choreography there and elsewhere. Then I did The Wizard of Oz at Madison Square Garden, um, which is technically a Broadway production because it was a production contract, same contract. The
Hmm.
reason it played Madison Square Garden, people don't know this, is because it was an existing set from Paper Mill Playhouse. There was not a theater in New York big enough to house the set of The Wizard of Oz.
Wow.
Except, I know it's interesting, except Madison Square Garden. So did that with Roseanne as the
Oh,
witch.
wow.
Then I went on tour with that show with Mickey Rooney, Eartha Kitt, yeah,
Wow.
and yeah, oh, so such that Eartha was amazing, and Mickey was a character. Oh, Mickey. And then it was at that point. It was at that point I said, okay, I've performed. I'm glad that I was able to perform and work with these great teachers,
Hmm.
legendary teachers. Uh, Now I'm going to do this. I'm going to be a director choreographer. I'm going to stop performing. So in 2000, I did a play, a straight play, and that was my swan song. I did no more performing. Um, and that was in the year 2000. Started continuing to choreograph and began to direct and choreograph. And that's kind of the path I've been on since 2000. Came to Orlando after living in New York City for 30 years, being in and out of New York City because of touring,
Hmm.
and then also being in and out of New York City because of traveling to do regional theater. Had done Les Mis here in Orlando at Orlando Shakes, directed it, and looked around at the talent pool and said, "Oh, there's a lot of talent here." Of course, by now, Disney was hiring equity for many of their performers, and saw when I auditioned for Les Mis that there were at least five people that came in with Broadway credits. I'm
Hmm.
like, oh, so the talent pool here is not just big; it's also experienced. It's a good talent pool.
Hmm.
So when I was looking around for, okay, I've been in New York 30 years and winters are hard, and I was directing a lot in Vero Beach in the winter because their season in Vero Beach at Riverside Theater is just essentially from January to March, April,
Hmm.
and said, oh, it's kind of great down here in those months, kind of great.
Hmm.
And so that's why I thought, well, I can base myself anywhere. So, people in the theater industry that do what I do and travel, we don't really say this is my home. They say this is my home base because
Yeah.
we do continue to travel so much anyway. So
Yeah.
my home base is now Orlando.
Hmm. Having, I know it's okay. It's great. And there's a million more stories I want to hear from you and all that. So I will say, having seen the production of La Cage aux Folles that you did at Riverside in Vero, and how long did it just run one weekend before the
One
pandemic?
one full 8 show week,
Mm.
one 8 show week, which was such a gift that
That it
we at
got,
least got that.
yes, that people got, it would have been tragic. And there are so many other theatrical stories that are not
Not so
this
happy. I
this
know.
positive, where it's just, it was a glorious production that you directed and choreographed.
Ugh, such a good time.
And yes, and the you directed me recently
I
in
did.
a nice fun streaming digital production of
So much fun.
10 Ways to Survive the Zombie Apocalypse for Mad Cow Theater as part of their Halloween streaming show series, and that was so much fun.
It was fun, wasn't it
Super
fun?
fun. We've talked about other things, other potential projects, and I'm not saying I hope to work together. It's I cannot wait until when I know we will be working together again.
Likewise, sir.
But DJ, we have a quandary, a
I know
conundrum,
Tootie and
Tootie and Jeff, and so we need to get back to this and return
Jeff.
to, is Tootie gonna really acquaint herself with the facts of life?
I don't know.
So
Uh-huh.
we come back from commercial. Tootie is awake, sitting on Natalie's bed. She can't sleep, so she basically needs to process further with Natalie's help. And this is where we drop the idea of things between me and Jeff haven't grown, and I think I need to give him more.
Yeah.
And Natalie beautifully says, "You don't mean the big more." And she's like, "Well, it's what college kids do, and I've got to prove to him that I'm not a child." And Natalie's like, "You are talking about the big more. Holy
Yeah.
shit."
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing.
Big more. She did say the big more.
Yeah.
Natalie does sort of turn. She sort of coaches Tootie in a way that is sort of unlike Natalie. Am I wrong? Natalie, the boy crazy, horny-ish.
Yeah. But I think when the chips are down, it's not that Natalie aspires to be a whore.
Right, right. No,
So I'm sorry, that's a terrible word. Whores do it for money. I mean to say slut. But yeah, when Natalie actually, it's a lovely thing of how protective she is of her friend. It's kind of this, you're doing all this thinking for him. You need to find out what he's really thinking. You're going to see him at brunch tomorrow. Take care of it. And then she says, "And promise me that's all you're going to do
right.
is just have brunch." And then she even says, repeats it, "Promise me." And it's like, yeah, okay, I promise.
He lied.
Yeah, well, I know a little bit, because you think she was ready. So then we come to the next scene is the conclusion of the croissant conundrum, the crazy croissant conundrum.
Oh,
And
Lord.
the only thing that is of note that we haven't already discussed, like I said, this is a B story and it doesn't really have a good payoff. I would have loved for there to be something to the effect of more people buying stuff.
Yeah.
Or I don't know what they could have done. The idea that they were serving subpar croissants, that's not good for business. No.
If they needed an extra to come in and say, "I brought in my coupon and got my free croissant the other day. It was so delicious. I'll take 6."
Mm-hmm.
To see that it worked.
Yeah.
That it actually generated a business.
What would it be? You know what? Here, this is how we're going to fix this as writers. It needed to be, all right, girls, we've got them ready. This is our Sunday morning. Open the door and have there be some people coming in and say, all right, if you just line up, you can get ready for your free croissant and have your coupon ready. And have the first couple people line and say, "Oh, we don't have coupons. We gave those to you yesterday. We're here because they were so delicious. We want a dozen each."
That's a good payoff.
Yes. There could be more people behind them in line with the coupons, sure. But that's where the payoff would have been that this is going to literally pay off.
Yes. Give the business.
There you go.
Yep. Fixed it.
That is what I will be sending back in my time machine to the writers. They have a...
Bob. Hey, Bob. Hey, Bob.
Yep. And then there are 3 customers who talk during this. So they do get credits in the credits at the end of the show. And there are 2 older women. The older white woman is Phyllis Ehrlich, and she's still working as recently as 2017 as a character actress. And she's not young here. She's like, she's up there. There is another actress named Adrienne Ricard. She's the African-American older woman. She died in 2016 at the age of 92 with 71 credits. So she had a lovely character actress career.
Yeah.
And then the other one of note is the customer with the baby, when she demands her 2 croissants and Mrs. Garrett's like, 1 per customer. Come the fuck on, lady.
Yeah.
Says, "Oh, 1 is for me and 1 is for the baby," that she's got in a little pouch in front of her.
Because babies eat croissants.
Yeah. And Mrs. Garrett even says, "Oh, does the baby want some coffee to go with that?" But she has to honor it because Mrs. Garrett did screw up this marketing campaign.
Right.
It's like, it's on you.
But
here's the deal. Mary Birkin is the actress who plays Woman with the Baby. She has been in the store before. We saw her in season 5, episode 22.
Oh.
That actress. She didn't have the baby then, so we assume that because it was the end of season 5, the baby is new. It could technically be the same person.
Uh-huh.
And people will remember it's the episode where Cousin Jerry is there and Cousin Jerry takes on too much and can't manage this big fundraising event. but she won't delegate anything because she feels like she has something to prove due to her disability. So at one point, a big, almost naked male statue is wheeled into the middle of the shop. This is the woman who is at the counter getting a dozen ham and cheese croissants.
Oh,
And in order to get rid of the statue, Natalie has a little ploy where she says, well, ma'am, it's your lucky day. With every dozen of ham and cheese croissants, you get one of these. And the woman is like, yeah, maybe next time, and leaves. But yeah, so we've seen her before, and she is clearly a fan of the Edna's Edibles croissant.
but a bit of a moocher.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, bitch, you paid for them. You know what they taste like.
Huh?
What is that about? And then that's it. This is the second of two appearances. We never see this bit player actress again. So then we go into the final scene. This is the one in Jeff's dorm. Well, not Jeff's dorm, but the dorm room in which Jeff is staying.
Yes.
And yes, he is there alone. We don't see a sleeping bag. So his friend, yes, definitely banging the girl in the room next door.
Yeah.
I do need to point out, in this dorm room, it doesn't say specifically whose room it is, but there's a Duran Duran poster over the bed. Next to it is an Iron Maiden poster.
That does not go together.
No, that's kind of like a set decorator. What are things the kids listen to?
That's schizophrenia.
Yeah, it's like those are two very different musical entities from 1984. Both very big and popular, but not necessarily compatible to the music lover's palate.
Right?
But here, Jeff was getting ready. He's shirtless, hallelujah, briefly, but he's getting ready to go for a run. Tootie shows up early, and this is where they have their heart-to-heart. And Tootie says, just blurts it out, Jeff, I love you, and if you want us to sleep together, it's okay with me.
Yeah, do me. Yep.
And this, and honestly, the scene before with Natalie, this whole thing of he needs something more, we're not going anywhere, that not so subtle underlying idea of I need to sleep with my man to keep my man.
Mm-hmm.
That is such a teenager mentality. I don't think it's gone away. I don't think it's a product of the times. Right. It's just, ugh. Yeah. I hope it's not as prevalent today.
I have to compromise myself to keep. I have to compromise myself to keep that thing that I want to be loved by.
Yeah.
And she says she loves him later in the same scene, but it's more about I fear losing somebody that loves me. It seems.
Yeah. And what is it? Why are we drifting apart? Is it me? What do you want me to do?
Yes.
That's.
I'll change, essentially. She says, I'll change. Like she assumes she's the problem.
And no. Yeah. But to his credit, you've got to love Jeff for this, where when she does sort of throw it out there, he is definitely taken aback and he is kind of evasive and like, where is this coming from? And she's like, well, your friends are fucking. Why aren't we fucking? And finally, she does say, don't you want to sleep with me? And Jeff's response is, Tootie, sleeping together isn't going to fix what's wrong. And this is where they get into the true meat of the matter, as it were. And I typically don't like it if it's too oblique, if it's too abstract, where it's like, well, then what's wrong? And he's like, I don't know. I feel like something's different, but I can't put my finger on it. And for some reason, I like that he can't articulate specifically, other than he says something to the effect of, I feel like I'm changing and I'm growing and I don't know what it is, but things are just not the same.
Yeah. Yes. And I appreciated that too, because that I think is very common for a college boy. Not so common for college boy to have girlfriend come into the room and say, we can have sex if you want, to say, oh, what? No.
Yeah. Oh, cool. I was going to break up with you later, but let's do it now.
But when he said that, I hearken back to the top of the episode where he comes in so excited to see her with a bunch of flowers. And like, well, so was that a pretense, or it's just that was a little odd? Like, we're led to believe he's still very attached to her. And now we're hearing for the first time from him in any way, yeah, I'm different, and so therefore our relationship is different because he comes in like, I can't wait to see my girl.
Yeah. Well, I think he didn't know. I think he didn't know until they actually got together and interacted and then went out with his friends. I think that for him
Mhm.
was a real kind of a moment of perspective of, oh, this is where I am and this is where I was.
Mhm.
And that didn't bother me as much. I like that he came in all happy. I feel like he was absolutely genuine when he brought in the flowers. Oh, horny Natalie line. And when he says, would you give her these for me? And Natalie says, anything else? He
Uh-huh.
says, well, I'll give her that myself.
Yeah.
That's at the very beginning. And I'm like, well, if that ain't foreshadowing to kind of like anything else you're going to give her.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
That was a curiosity and very foreshadowing, as it were. But
Sure.
by the end, when it's like, let's not do our brunch date, and she says, you know what, you go for that run. And he says, okay. And there's this, it's not really a goodbye. It's not a really we're breaking up, but it's a sense of this. There's almost a
Well,
sense of we don't know what this is, so we're just going to kind of step away from it.
I guess it will step away. I got the finality from Tootie's perspective in the gesture of taking off the necklace that he gave her.
Yeah.
The football that she had to shine every day. What is it made
Yeah.
of?
I
I don't
know
know.
yeah, but he did give her that in the very first, when she and he first started dating, he absolutely gave her that. That was
So,
part
so
of,
it's very big to take it off and leave
yeah.
it on his desk.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So there
Oh,
is definitely a finality about it, but they don't say to each other explicitly they're going to break up. You almost feel like when he leaves, it's still somewhat open-ended. And then talk about an act of maturity. Tootie taking off the necklace
mhm,
and slowly placing it on his desk,
mhm.
of her being the one to say, this is over.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I really liked about this episode, even though I'm typically not crazy about ambiguous endings or endings where
Mm.
you assume something's happening but it's not being said. This is okay. I was not mad at this episode as a whole, in spite of our thousands of criticisms of it.
That's what we do.
It's my job.
I guess the thing I would say about that decision that she makes at the end, it again felt a little bit of a leap, given how even in the same scene she says, "I love you,"
Hmm.
and you can call it mature to say if he is in question about what our relationship is, that she says, "Well, if you're in question, then I'm stepping away." That actually isn't, from my perspective, an immature response
Mm-mm.
to let him be to say I'm leaving because you're questioning, as opposed to you're questioning, let's figure it out.
Oh, okay. I see.
So for her to just
Hmm.
say I'm done, that in my from my perspective psychologically is actually an immature response.
Interesting.
I thought.
We'll agree to disagree on that.
Yes, okay.
Yeah. And it also helps to know that they do get back together and get married and have
Well,
a baby
see,
and then he
you know
dies.
these things that I don't know
Yeah.
about what's about to happen.
We know the future is still
You do.
looking kind of bright there for the two of
Well,
them,
and then he
but
dies of CTE, but
oh, so sad.
oh, well, so
So
sad.
sad. At least they have the daughter.
We had a daughter.
His legacy lives on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
We want to know that could be a new series, the story of Tisha.
Tisha's story. And Kim Fields could direct and produce, and that's
Yeah,
what she does now. Yeah.
and Joe could be a cranky old aunt.
Love it. Well, we are at the end of the episode, and before I send you on your way, darling, I always like to bump up the nostalgia factor and just say, completely random, off the top of your head, name a commercial from your childhood.
Easy. Mystery date. Are you ready for your mystery date? Don't be late for your mystery date.
I don't even know what that is. Is that
You're too young. You're too young.
is that a show or is that a product?
Commercial. Mystery date? Oh, David.
What was what was it?
This is a show and tell that we'll have not on your show. I actually have the game.
Oh, it's like a board game?
Uh-huh.
That's
Oh,
okay. Now that you say that, that sounds. I literally did not have any clue what that could have been
your homework.
for.
You're going to look for Mystery Date commercial on Google today.
I will post it on the website.
You because Mystery Date, I loved Mystery Date because it was like every
Nice.
little gay boy's dream. Like there's a door and you turn the doorknob and when
Uh
you
huh.
open the door there's a different picture of your mystery date.
Oh.
Awesome.
I have to look that up and see now. Maybe it is a little more familiar than I realized, but yeah. But nowadays, of course, we do have it. It's just called Grinder.
That's right. That's even more of a mystery date.
Yeah, talk of mystery.
Show up. You have no idea.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. I loved this chance to continue to get to know you and learn about your career. And in addition to just being your friend and knowing you're an all around awesome person in my life.
You're an awesome person in my life. I'm
Oh,
grateful for you.
Dark.
Thanksgiving week, we get to say it all week. I'm so grateful for you.
That's Thanksgiving. It's about being grateful. So I'm grateful for you, my dear. And I hope we'll be able to do this again. I'll have you back on the show.
Okay. And
All
we'll,
right.
we'll agree to disagree and love it.
Yes, that's it. We will live in the tension. So smooches, my dear, and goodbye. Mwah.
Bye.
And there you have it. That was DJ Salisbury. How about those Broadway credits, huh? How about the names that he dropped? Isn't that crazy? He's worked with Mickey Rooney and Eartha Kitt and Tommy Tune. And and here's another interesting little tidbit. A couple days after we recorded this, he and I were hanging out at Epcot, and I happened to somehow bring up Adrian Zmed, which, as you know from listening to the show, my crush on Adrian Zmed, starting with Grease 2, it was a very real crush. Serious. And DJ pulls out his phone and shows me a text string between him and Adrian Zmed. I'm like, what? And he said, Adrian Zmed was on the national tour of Grease that ran in the 90s playing Danny Zuko. He was like 45 at the time, but it doesn't matter. So DJ is actually friends with him. They text. Blew my mind again. The other points I didn't get to make on the show that I wanted to. Number one, for how much we've been shitting on some of the acting choices made by Kim Fields in season 5, I really think she's quite good in this episode. So just so you know, we're not always going to be critical of that. I hope we've turned a corner in her evolution, in her adolescence, and in her talent. We talked about briefly that the new folklore we're making up is that Jeff died of CTE. I'm sure you know what we're talking about. It's the repeated head injury disease that befalls many athletes. CTE stands for chronic traumatic encephalopathy. 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 You see why an actor and didn't go to med school? Yeah. Anyhow, that is the neurodegenerative disease which causes severe and irreparable brain damage as a result of repeated head injuries. That is from the foremost medical authority, Wikipedia. So, moving on. Next week, I'm going to be watching Season 6, Episode 5, called Cruisin'. And that's a pretty special, iconic episode, very different from the rest of the series. It's a lot of firsts, a lot of one-time things that they never did before and will not do after. So that is a very special episode, and you know I need a very special guest to take the journey with me. So Matthew Arter is going to be back. Yes. You can watch the episode for free at dailymotion.com. No more on the Roku channel. I will post a link in the show notes and on the webpage. That's all for now, guys. As always, thank you so much for listening to this week's show. And remember, the facts of life are all about you. Let's Face the Facts was produced, written, hosted, and edited by me, David Almeida. My theme song was beautifully arranged and recorded by Ned Wilkinson. Our website is facethefactspod.com. You have to drop the lets. And that's where you can find extra pictures, video, and audio extras from the digital cutting room floor. Follow the show on social media. We're everywhere under the handle Face the Facts Pod. You can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/FaceTheFactsPod. And don't forget, go to your favorite podcatchers and subscribe, rate, and review. Tune in again next week for another thrilling episode of Let's Face the Facts.